Hi everyone, today I'm going to be showing you how to UV unwrap in Blender. UV unwrap is basically when we make an object, we then create a net that we can very easily then apply a custom texture on instead of having to apply it face by face or transform it as we may have to do in other programs such as SketchUp. So I'm going to show you actually from first loading up Blender, so I'm going to model the object and then apply the UV texture so that you can see it all the way from the start. The only thing I've got other than just Blender is I've gone and downloaded a UV texture map. So this is just a texture map for a cam. I literally just search for it online. You can search for any object that you want. Just make sure that you have an image, a JPEG, PNG, whatever you like. So I've got that prepared. That's all I need. So I'm going to click off, and you can see that we've got our default Blender setup with the cube, the camera, and the light. I'm going to hit X on my keyboard and hit Enter to delete that cube. And then I'm going to go to Add, Mesh, and a Cylinder. Remember, I'm making a can because that's the texture map I've got. If you've already got an object, if you've already got a UV map, then you don't need to kind of follow along with this bit. I'm going to hit S on my keyboard to scale it. I'm going to hit S again and Z just to stretch it out. And then I'm going to go to the top left to Edit Mode, go to Face Select, and I'm going to start sculpting the top of the can. So I'm going to click on that top face, hit E on my keyboard to extrude, hit S to slightly bevel it, hit E again, S, and just start creating the rim of the can there. Very quick, very simple. I'm not going to be massively picky about the actual dimensions of this. The importance is the UV element. There we go, that'll do. Go to Object Mode, hit Control A, I'm going to apply a scale. And that means I'm not going to have any problems with my texture. When you scale things, stretch them, distort them, transform them, and you don't apply a scale or rotation or whatever, you can encounter all sorts of problems with texturing. So just to be on the safe side, Control A, apply the scale. Okay, let's get down to the UV element. So I'm going to go to the top of my screen, and you can see that we've got a tab that says UV editing. Click on that, and you'll get a square with a grid, and you'll get effectively a net of your object. So if you remember, like at primary school or as a kid, you would have a shape and then you'd have it sort of drawn on a piece of paper, you cut it out and then fold and glue all the tabs. That's essentially what we've got here. One thing you'll notice is that all I've got is the side, the top and the bottom. So what this is a net of is the cylinder I actually started with, not the shape that I've got here. What I need to do is add a seam onto this model, basically where you would get your scissors and cut up along the side and around the edges, so that we actually get the UV map of this object. And it'll probably make a lot more sense once you see me do it. So in this panel here on the right hand side in our 3D view, I'm going to go to Edge Select Mode. I'm just going to select any edge on the side here, let's say that one. I'm going to hold down Shift and select all of them up and around the side of my model here. So that's going to add a cut along the side here, which means I'm going to be able to effectively peel back the label on the side of this can. What I also need to do is I need to add a cut on the top as well, around this circle, sorry. And instead of doing it one by one like that, which is going to take time, I'm going to hold down Shift and Alt on my keyboard. I think it's Command on a Mac. And just click on any of those edges and it will automatically select all the edges in that loop. I'm going to do it at the bottom as well. So hold down Shift, hold down Alt, click, and it'll automatically select all those edges. To make the seam, really straightforward, just right click and go down to Mark Seam. You can see my line goes red, but nothing happens on the left hand side. So I'm going to hit A on my keyboard to select the whole can, go to UV, unwrap, and I've got an updated view here of my can, of my model. You can see the side's more accurate because it has, where it's beveled and where the rim is. You can see all those condensed lines there. And you can see that the top and bottom of my can are different sizes as they are on the model. So this is actually an accurate map of what I've got here. Now, I do want to add some more cuts because I want the label to appear on the side here, but I want the rim here to be metallic. So I want to separate those. So really simple. Just hold down Shift and Alt. Oh, I've already got an edge selected there, so select off. Shift, Alt. There we go, to chop that bit off. Gonna hit Shift, Alt there as well to chop that. And Shift, Alt here. And again, just right click, Mark Seam, hit A on your keyboard, UV, unwrap. That's it, that's much, much better. You can see I've got all the different rims here, top and bottom of the can, and the label. So this is going to be really easy now to work with. So next step is to actually bring the image that we've downloaded into the UV port here. And to do that, we're going to click Open at the very top of the screen and just go to wherever you've saved it. So mine's in my downloads. There we go. Just click Open. And you can see that the image is brought in straight away. So now we've got the fun bit of just moving all these different pieces around. So if we start with the top of the can, I'm going to go to face select mode to make it a bit easier. I'm going to click the top. You can see that everything else has disappeared. We've only got the line, effectively the net, for the top of the can. So with my mouse in the UV editing port, I can hit A, you can see all those lines go orange, so that means they're selected. Hit G on my keyboard to grab, and I can now move this around. So I'm going to move it to where on my texture map there is the top of the can. I'm going to hit S on my keyboard to scale. All your normal shortcuts work, so G to grab, S to scale, R to rotate, transform it as you need. There we go. Now I'm going to do the rim here, so I'm going to click on one of the sides, hold down Shift and Alt to select them all, and then just go around like so. And you can see that the top of my can's disappeared. I've just got the rim. Hit A, hit G. I'm just going to move them to this part of the texture here. Do remember that the smaller you make your object on here, the larger the texture is actually going to be on your model. So just be aware of the quality of the texture you're using. If it becomes an issue, get a higher quality texture, or try and think of a workaround where you start slicing up individual parts of the part of the model you're trying to texture. So I'm going to select the next part. There we go. Hit A, G, and let's say we move it over here. I'm going to do the bottom, same thing again. I'm going to move it over here, scale it. Doesn't matter if your nets overlap each other, makes absolutely no difference. Okay, now let's do the label. And hit A to select, G. I'm going to hit R and type 90 to rotate it 90 degrees. Going to hit S to scale, and now I'm just going to type X just to scale it on the X-axis because the height's pretty spot on. There we go. I'm not going to do the bottom because I don't really need to in this case. I think it's proven the point. So if I hit A in my object window now, you can see that all parts of my mesh have moved around. So we're done with this now. What we can actually do is just go to layout mode, and I'm going to type Z on my keyboard and go to rendered view. And you can see that nothing appears. What we've just done is we've edited and mapped our model onto the UV map. What we now need to do is link it. We need to actually apply that texture to the model. Very simple process. We're going to drag this bottom bar up. You can see we've got a timeline currently. And if you hover over the top, you'll be able to just drag it up like so. We don't need the timeline. What we need to do is go over to the left-hand side where we've got a little clock icon. Click, and we're going to go to the shader editor. You get this blank screen here. At the top, you've got plus new, which is going to add a new material. Click on that, and we'll get these two little boxes, these two nodes. And you'll get this with pretty much every new texture you create. I'm not going to explain all of this because that's a whole separate video series even in and of itself. What I'm just going to show you is how to get that UV map onto your model. And to do that, all you've got to do is go to Add on the left-hand side, Texture, Image Texture. And you'll get an image texture node. You get a little file icon which says Open, and you're going to open that same image you've downloaded. Now you can see here I've actually got copies of that image. If I loaded those copies, this wouldn't work. You've got to load the exact file you used in the UV mapping stage. So just click and open, and you can see it's loaded up here. Very last step is where you've got colour and the yellow circle, and you've got base colour and the yellow circle. Just click and drag to join those up. And now you can see that it has updated. There's our texture. So you're good to go. There's your UV texture onto your model. You can make changes as well. So you can see that currently my label is upside down. So I can go back to UV editing, select all the faces along the side, which my label's applied to. I'm just going to hit R and 180. And now if I go to object mode, hit Z on my keyboard and go to rendered, you can see that my texture has transformed. In fact, you can actually do this live. If I go to edit mode and I rotate it, you can see that it updates in real time, which is kind of groovy. So by using UV unwrapping, you can apply any texture that you've created in Photoshop. Remember, you can just create a Photoshop file like this and bring it in, and you can effectively create any texture, apply it to any model that you want. So there you have it. There's how to UV unwrap in Blender.